I'm just going to simply get ready to pass the digital baton, talking stick to Sarah Gentile, if you're ready. Sarah's from MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and hopefully you'll be able to start sharing your screen as and when.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen right there. I've made my window a little small, so there we are.
That's brilliant. I can see your slides and hear you beautifully. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Michael said, my name is Sarah Gentile, and I'm going to talk to you today about lessons learned from creating a new preservation workflow for digital video at MoMA. Many thanks to the DPC for organizing this set of workflow webinars to share and learn valuable preservation methods with our colleagues throughout the world. First, I want to give a little bit of background about the nature of the problem that this workflow is attempting to solve in the dynamic institutional environment in which we're putting it into practice. I want to contextualize my talk by putting the museum at its center. The Museum of Modern Art is located in Midtown Manhattan and was founded in 1929. Its mission is to connect the people of the world with the art of our time. The museum has a collection of over 200,000 paintings, sculptures, drawings, prints, photographs, media and performance artworks, architectural models and drawings, design objects, and film. In the last calendar year, MoMA had nearly 2.7 million visitors for 35 exhibitions. Its film department is the oldest in North America and holds over 30,000 film titles. I work within a subgroup of the Conservation Department, Media Conservation, specializing in time-based media. My primary focus is the preservation of digital art in the museum's collection. We receive artwork from artists and their galleries, and in these workspaces, we use tools to safely transfer time-based media artwork off external carriers like slide, film, and hard drives, and to store them in museum collections. In addition to this, MoMA creates video documentation of events and MoMA-produced video for social media. Yearly, hundreds of videos are recorded. Over 50 years, this has amassed into a huge backlog of material. A new workflow is needed to tackle this problem, and we call this project the VDAM. The V is for video, and DAM is for digital asset management, but VDAM is easier to say. The digital preservation environment that existed before this workflow was key to establishing the building of the VDAM. The Digital Repository for Museum Collections is a system designed to preserve digital artwork files and to ensure their future access. We refer to this as the DRMC. Over a span of 15 years, MoMA staff came together to build the DRMC, working closely with the imaging and visual resources departments, IT, Conservation reached out to form lasting partnerships and to steward the museum's digital artwork. Its success lay in working with already existing tools that were widely used within the museum to ensure that new workflows were baked into daily operations. The early years of this work required a comprehensive survey and basic cataloging of the digital artwork files. This was followed by mass digitization and the development of a digital storage plan. By 2016, MoMA had distributed local storage of artwork with file fixity. Later, Media Conservation worked to improve vendor contracts and to refine its archival storage software. And since 2020, we've been laying the groundwork for a migration to hybrid cloud and local storage environments for stored digital art. Throughout this time, Media Conservation focused its attention on building the capacity to safely store and provide access to collection materials. It took time to develop the plan and to right-size it for the collection. The most authoritative database for artwork at MoMA is TMS. This is Gallery Systems collection management software. Using TMS, we adapted physical artwork cataloging to track digital artwork files. MoMA's digital artwork collection, from painting and sculpture to architecture and to drawings and prints, is all cataloged within TMS. Within each art object's record is a component screen with fields for cataloging details related to the artwork. For example, Van Gogh's Starry Night has individual component fields for the painting on its canvas and its related frames. When digital artworks were first acquired, cataloging digital objects was relatively new, and so followed the same method of cataloging as physical objects. In this example, we see that sort of cataloging for the hard drive that the file arrived on. At MoMA, the registrar department manages physical artwork components, but the needs and complexity of digital files require close collaboration with media conservation. Over time, media conservation developed using TMS component fields for cataloging and describing digital art objects with technical and descriptive metadata. While TMS has been used extensively within the museum to catalog physical artwork, the DRMC innovation was using TMS to record and catalog digital files. Tying video files to specific TMS records ensured that files and digital storage were linked to their corresponding cataloging. The cataloging in TMS could then populate DAM copies of the digital files with rich collection data. Working with vendors like Artifactual, the museum was able to refine its metadata and that it stored with its artwork files and maintain their fixity. The use of these software tools offered file format identification by microservices built within the Archivematica software. The MoMA Digital Asset Management System, NetX, is a staff access point for viewing copies of still images of collection materials. The establishment of the DRMC allowed for access to art collection video via the DAM. Working more closely with the imaging team that manages the DAM, Media Conservation was able to create partnerships that mirrored its future partnerships on the VDAM workflow. All that is to say is that at the start of the VDAM project, there was already in place a way of handling digital materials at MoMA that was time tested. A 2022 survey of institutional video held throughout MoMA revealed that nearly a petabyte of institutional video was without a preservation and access plan. Most material was on external hard drives or shared servers. The creative team produced 35 video features a year with hours and hours of footage going into creating these works. These videos are shared widely via social media channels like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Additionally, curatorial departments, especially the film department and media and performance departments, are hosting live events that generate hundreds of terabytes a year of unique content. The archival video collection is increasingly being digitized from its analog form. These files need a preservation and access points for staff as well as outside researchers. The growing need for digital storage of this type of material and the collecting institution began in the late 1960s at MoMA. Originally on analog formats, the digital files that came later amounted to a large footprint on MoMA's internal servers. Additionally, there was no formalized way to search for these recordings within the institution. From relationships built within the museum developing the DRMC, imaging and visual resources and MoMA conservation teams at MoMA banded together to develop a project that would offer both preservation and access of institutional video. With communication and reliance on MoMA's IT infrastructure, we worked to fit this project within MoMA's technology framework and budget. The imaging and visual resources and team and media conservation continue to meet bi-weekly to bridge the gap between access and preservation sides of the project and to discuss strategies for developing the project in the future. A consultancy for digital preservation, AVP, was brought into the museum to gain perspective on this project in 2022. AVP was already familiar with MoMA's environment from the work they did consulting at the beginning of the DRMC. They interviewed key stakeholders and returned an overview document that recommended using existing preservation and access methods for institutional video materials. Those results shaped the plan that began the DRMC project, the VDAM project. MoMA institutional video currently lives on internal MoMA shared servers, external hard drives, and online cloud storage at the individual or departmental level. The amassed backlog of institutional video files was concerning to all who understood the wealth that the petabyte of material represented. But if a new workflow for these files were to be effective in such a large museum, we would have to work with the material being created now first. Working with content creators as soon as video is produced also has served to develop their interest in preserving the work in the VDAM. So working across multiple departments, we began a process of developing the workflow to catalog, arrange, and package files, making this type of material accessible to museum staff and to preserve it. Based on our existing information infrastructure, the digital collection materials, we created links between VDAM video files and their TMS cataloging fields. These are later linked to the DAM with TMS collection data. Like in cataloging collection objects in the DRMC, we have been expanding the cataloging of events in TMS. This can be useful for video related to multiple artworks. The VDAM team is working with content generating departments to catalog materials. We wanted to keep the cataloging as minimal as possible to lighten the lift for other staff members. We use batch record creation wherever possible for recurring events. DAM users can access their files by searching the DAM for a video's synced TMS data. And staff members only need light training on how to access these files because they have experience with the tool from other museum imaging projects. With robust development for this project beginning in 2024, when initial funding was secured to allocate the space for the VDAM and DAM materials, 2025 has been our pilot phase for the project. We're looking to expand the project to encompass more material produced by other departments and to expand the flow of materials into the VDAM. By 2027, we hope to be in full production mode with all relevant institutional video created at MoMA, finding a pathway into the VDAM. So with the VDAM project fully underway, we've been able to reflect on lessons learned in building the workflow that we hope will be useful to the digital preservation community. One lesson from building this workflow was to use existing resources. We've made gains from modeling the tech infrastructure already set up for digital artwork and external technological solutions provided by open source tools like Archivematica. The relationships built between departments for the DRMC development also helped forge a path for this new workflow. We've also learned the need to find a core project team. Within a large institution, it can be challenging to find others who see a project like VDAM as a priority. Additionally, they have to be resourced to provide the time to devote to a project like this. It can be difficult to ask staff and other departments to commit the time for shepherding materials into the collection as well. By streamlining the cataloging steps and working to divide up file preparation, we have been able to involve staff at the level where they can manage the workload going forward. And by empowering subject specialists to engage with video from their own departments, we also make sure that material is properly identified. And finally, this project began because there was a large backlog of material to process. It can be tempting to begin with the oldest material first, but by instead starting the work with new content, we're ensuring that this process gets baked into creation. Future projects can be created to target high-value content for preservation from the backlog as the VDAM work progresses. So now, when institutional video files are generated for MoMA projects, there's a way to keep them safe. I want to thank you all for your time and the opportunity to share this new workflow with the community.
Thanks, Sarah. That's lovely, wonderful, and people are already beating me to it with the virtual applause. So we can just show our appreciation for Sarah. That was excellent, very clear, and the questions are already starting to come in. So there's one from Chris Werner here. Sorry, I'm just getting a message on my screen. I'll see if we saying, do you create audio only files from the video submitted to potentially reduce the storage requirements?
We don't, but we do also, I should say that for clarity's sake, in this environment, sorry, we have we're very green, so our lights turn off if I'm just sitting here. For clarity's sake, we've said video materials, but this is also AV, this is audio visual. So we do have like podcasts and that are continued with this. We don't try to reduce our storage footprint that way, because we already have, we've allotted for that sort of storage to exist already, but I could see doing that for your DIPs, for your distribution access copies, if you're sending things out, but it just seems like a workflow that doesn't work within MoMA's context.
Thanks, Sarah. So on that note, I wasn't quite clear. You said you were working with Archivum and on Archivematica, sort of. So how much of this kind of development work is taking place in-house? How much of it relies on expertise elsewhere? And is there a long-term plan for sort of how you're going to support this going forwards?
Well, I saw all these beautiful workflows, and I was thinking that it would be nice to have talked about, the way that we're working towards putting artwork collection in the cloud, but these files, the VDAM files, are local only. And so we used to run an instance of Archivematica in-house, and now we don't do that because we're so busy with just dealing with the content itself that we've formed this really great partnership with Artifactual to have them take our bagged SIPs and make them into like more robust apes with their microservices. And this is following that same plan as the digital files. The VDAM files are doing that. They're hitting our local servers, and then they're replicated and, with distribution, both geographically and, locks and all those wonderful things.
Thanks for that. Hillary's just posted a question in the chat asking if you're only preserving the final cuts of the institutional media. I'm guessing she's talking about the stuff you're creating in-house, or do you include the B-roll in NetX?
Great question. B-roll really creates a huge storage footprint. And so one of our partners who has been an unnamed partner, but obviously is very important, is our archives. These are archives materials. They are headed towards the archives eventually. And so the choice of whether or not to retain that B-roll will be made down the line. We're just organizing it in a way so that the archives can make that decision from an archival collection policy standpoint in the future. So the B-roll is being preserved at this point, but I'm not sure if every piece of B-roll will be preserved in perpetuity. That's TBD.
Okay, and another one from me, I'm afraid. So you talked about the importance of, or one of the lessons learned was about building a coalition of collaborators. Have you got any tips you can share on that? Is there anything that seemed to work well or not? Did you just sort of offer donuts or something to get people in a room, or did you get like one of the senior managers to say, right, everyone must go along and listen to Sarah?
I think it's funny, that everyone had such great, very specific tips about the software tools, but like I don't know who I'm quoting here, which is kind of terrible, but preservation is people. So if you think about the things that I think came together was figuring out like who had access to budgets, who had passion for the project, who understands like the access needs, who understands the content. So it's a really large institution. So within your organization, anyone here on this call, I think it's more about like having sidebar conversations with people and figuring out where their heart lies and how to like make the time happen for them. And, you know, because once you get this project underway, you kind of want to you don't want to find out that you're not going to get the budget from finance.
Yeah, it's all about the money, isn't it, too often? But I know what you mean, and that's good. I'm conscious I'm dominating this a bit. Has anybody else got questions they'd like to put or comments they'd like to put to Sarah? I've distracted everybody by mentioning donuts. We're all thinking of food now. So I guess there was another lesson you learned about sort of using existing tools and resources. So I maybe in the conversations with the people who hold the budget strings, has that created any issues for you? Because people are sort of saying, hey, you know, you're doing this all on the cheap, use the stuff you've already got. You don't need to buy anything new. I guess there's sort of any unexpected sides that have come out of these conversations.
I don't think it's as much that as what is already being used is adopted already. And it's like, you know, there's pressure points within an organization that's large about like adoption and maintenance of these new software tools. And like, if you build something bespoke, like who else is maintaining it? What's your software environment? How does your IT support that? But if it's already being supported, not only can you leverage what's already been used, like years and years of great cataloging that's been done by my colleagues, but you can also be sure that it's a software that's not going to be jettisoned because the prices go up.
Yeah, fair enough. You've got a couple of comments in the chat. I'm going to leap over one because it ties in with what we were just talking about, which is from one of my DPC colleagues actually. Says, was there anything you really, whoops, disappeared on my list. Was there anything you really wanted to do that limiting yourself to existing tech kind of prevented?
Not so far. Like I don't know of anything that would have necessarily worked within our department. That you know, there are organizations that will use things that are more common for streaming services for this sort of thing, where like they get a like specific to video DAM. But I think within this institution, that you know the adoption and the end users would be so low, the number of people might not serve, and then it's another software platform to maintain and integrate with our environment. So luckily NetX is advancing and able to handle these sorts of files and as an access point for end users.
Thanks. Well, you're sort of segueing into actually Sandra's question, which I skipped over, which she asks, did you have a third party to handle the integration between the dams and the TMS collection management system?
We don't, but I understand that I'm coming from a perspective that not a lot of other people might be coming from, which is like we're resourced with a wonderful IT team that can help us with, you know, handling the specific APIs that will pull collection data between the two systems. So that came in handy. But this, again, that we didn't have to figure all this out for this VDAM project because we had the DRMC and like a lot of this groundwork was already laid for us. So another reason why we found it beneficial to really lean on existing structures.
Thanks, Sarah. Taking a slightly different tack, Nicholas has asked in the chat, he's curious about the work you've done to modify established cataloging practices in the TMS for physical objects to cover digital objects. And he's just asking, is there anywhere that he could read more about that or any documentation, because it's something many museums struggle with?
That's a great question. I would say that my media conservation conservator colleagues have written extensively about this in AIC, American Institute of Conservation documents. So please follow up with me personally, and I can point you to the best resource for that. It's something that is often like pointed to for digital art specifically. So the community is a little small, but I could see the broad strokes that could help people within, the university and government environments as well.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, I encourage people to take you up on that offer. John was asking if you had any challenges with the size of packages and transfers that you're putting through Archivematica, because we all know AV files can get pretty big. So
actually, we've had some real successes lately, and the choke points were sometimes just in our network. We recently stored a 6 terabyte feature length film, and it was fine. It was able to, and this, I should say, this is because we've been working with lovely colleagues at Artifactual who have been like the minders for these files. So I don't have to go and SSH into, my own environment and make sure that these files are running through, and I can actually coordinate like moving materials and packaging materials locally. So it's a real partnership.
thanks. That's great, Sarah. And I was going to say legally, I'm morally obliged to mention sort of one of the comments from my colleague, Jen Mitchum at the DPC, who is reminding everyone that within the DPC, or under the auspices, we have a museum and galleries special interest group. So for people who are from your sector, it's a sort of a group where very much people who share the same sort of concerns can come together. So if you're not a member of that and you're interested, then have a look on our web pages and take that up. We have another group which I get involved with called the AV SIG group, which brings together a lot of people who work from sort of the film and audio and moving image industries, and conversations with them on a kind of similar basis. So we do a lot of that sort of stuff, as well as these webinars. So Sarah, can I thank you again for a wonderful presentation and for taking the time to answer all those questions, and for people putting them in the chat.